So Laurance Rockefeller invited me up to New York and then invited me to his ranch, the JY Ranch in Wyoming. And as you know, that's where the Clintons, for the first couple years of their presidency, would vacation in August. But I was asked to go there in September of 1993 to basically share what he thought would just be the information about the CE5 initiative. Laurance Rockefeller did not know about the initiative to brief senior governmental officials and encourage them to end the secrecy, which had started a few months prior to that at this meeting in Virginia at the Monroe Institute with a select number of folks that my military advisors had gathered together. That was July of '93. So he just thought it was going to be a discussion about the protocols of the CE5 initiative, remote viewing, making contact, interstellar diplomacy, all of these concepts. And so we decided that it was really time for us to go ahead and have some meetings like this with Laurance. And I said, okay, I'll go. Because I have to go out. I'm on a trip anyway, and taking time off from my medical work in the ER to go to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which also Laurance knew nothing about. Laurance Rockefeller knew nothing about. So here's what happened. I was going to go to the Rockefeller Ranch just as sort of a guest to share this, and during the course of a sort of a round table, and there were all kinds of people there. Robert Bigelow of Bigelow Aerospace, who's a billionaire, was there. A whole bunch of people who of various backgrounds in the UFO subculture, some friendly to what we do and some incredibly unfriendly, who we found out were working for the intelligence community, were there. And there was this gathering at this famous Rockefeller Ranch in the Grand Tetons. So one day it came up what else I was working on. I said, well, we've initiated a project to brief senior government officials in the Clinton administration and the Pentagon and members of Congress so that we can terminate secrecy on this issue and get the government to change policy, because we understand that the incoming president is favorable to that idea, which was, of course, Bill Clinton. And as a result, you could have heard a pin drop in the room. Nobody knew at all. And the first thing Laurance Rockefeller said, what, it was like this. Where are you doing? I said, well, I'm going straight to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base after this meeting to brief the colonel over this Foreign Technology Division of the Air Force. And then I'm going to, in a couple months, brief President Clinton's CIA director. So at this point, Laurance Rockefeller and everyone there were in a state of shock. Now, that initiated what has been incorrectly called the Rockefeller Initiative. There was no Rockefeller Initiative. Let me explain that in a moment. What it was an initiative because he found out what we were doing, and his people said, you've got to get involved with this. So Laurance wanted to play a behind-the-scenes role, and that's why he was willing to host the President and First Lady at the ranch to provide what we put together, which was called the best available evidence, which is the collection of best cases, best photos, best government documents we had that were extant at that time in 1993. So the President was invited out in the following summers, 2 summers, to the Rockefeller Ranch for that purpose. And the UN Secretary General, in the meanwhile, and his wife came to some meetings in what are called salons. A salon is when someone hosts a very nice meeting in a private home with dignitaries, and you have a guest, usually some surprise guest or some interesting character like me, to come in and inform the New York 100 about what's going on. So that's what I did, and they were incredibly successful. Subsequent to that, Mrs. Boutros-Ghali invited us to have a meeting at the UN so I could brief a lot of the diplomats and friends of hers in the UN who were supportive of ending secrecy and making peaceful interplanetary contact. And actually, Leah Ghali herself hosted that for me at the United Nations. I'm just trying to give you sort of a sense of what happened before May of 2001 with what's now very famous National Press Club event.